nice article in the Managing Madrid blog. Wonderful lads that do a great job there. And worth reading about that man there. Karim Benzema needs to rest, and the numbers reveal why.
Times ended up almost looking like a 6-3-1. Some very good writing about that on the Managing Madrid website. First-rate podcast as well. Of course, Fede Valverde was a huge part of the equation.
Hello and welcome to a Monday edition of the Managing Madrid Podcast. I'm your host, Kiyan Sobhani. We are joined by Lucas Navarrete 2 days after Real Madrid lose to Villarreal at Ceramica, a game which Lucas was at, and I don't know what's happening. 2 days later, everything's falling apart. Got to sign this player and that player. We got to sell this player. Alaba's injured. Tchouameni's injured. And everything's falling apart. So Lucas and I are here to give you some therapy. Lucas, how you doing, man?
Hey, Kiyan, I'm doing fine. You're right. It seems that it hasn't been an easy start to the year for Real Madrid so far. Not even to the year, but also to the post World Cup break, because I don't think the first game against Valladolid was that ideal either. We can discuss and talk about these things in a minute.
Well, I'm just kind of used to the fact. I know it's not acceptable to have these standards if you want to frame it that way, but this is, I feel like, just Real Madrid, a regular day in the life of Real Madrid. They're struggling against any team in La Liga. You were at Ceramica.
Yeah.
Tell us about that atmosphere, experience.
I was a bit disappointed with the overhaul of this stadium. You know, I read many things about how it was supposed to create a new experience for the fans, maybe even also for the journalists and all that. And pretty much the only thing I saw was, this new yellow color covering the whole stadium outside and inside. But press area pretty much looked the same. The press room looked the same. The door wasn't even changed. It was one of these very old doors, cracking and and making funny noises when you try to open them. So I was unimpressed with the work they did so far. I think they would have and could have done a much better job had they put obviously some more effort and will, and also some more money. I look at, for example, Levante's stadium, and I think they've done a much better work with these renovations than what Villarreal did. Although I have to admit that it does look fancy on the outside and also the inside. But apart from that, the general experience is 100% the same it was.
So what you're saying is the renovations were essentially just a big yellow umbrella on the stadium?
That's basically what I'm saying. Yes, correct. Press area was pretty much the same it was. The floor was the same. The tables were the same. The same can be said about the press room and the press conference room. Mixed zone, pretty much the same as well. So yeah, I struggle finding what else they changed apart from this new yellow color. And yeah, it's true, they changed the whole every single one of their seats. But apart from that, it looks pretty much the same to me. Yeah.
Did you have any insights being there that you found, maybe things off camera? Any observations that you think maybe was missed from us watching home on TV, or was it pretty much everything that you read?
You mean about the stadium or about the game itself?
The game.
Oh yeah. The game itself, no, not really. I thought it was a fairly standard and game of Real Madrid in El Madrigal in Villarreal's stadium. I thought the main thing that caught my eye was the struggles Real Madrid had a little bit tactically with that right flank. That right flank looked a little bit like a mess with Valverde and Militao. Although, in my opinion, Militao individually, his performance looked fine to me. He played well individually, but again, tactically, I think the team was a bit of a mess. Also in the midfield, but especially on the right flank, I think that Real Madrid were attacking. This is obviously a trend every time Real Madrid play, that they focus so much on the left wing. but I thought it was too much of that issue against Villarreal on Saturday. So these struggles in the midfield, Tchouameni not being in a not very good positioning wise, in my opinion, during the game. I thought, in particular play with when Baena shot from distance, I thought it was in the first half. He wasn't covering that second line, Villarreal's second line, in that kind of shot. So I think Tchouameni and the right flank and Real Madrid's right flank are the two things that probably caught my eye a little bit more. I don't know if the guys on watching the game on TV pretty much saw the same thing, but I'm guessing they did.
Yeah, this was basically a universal talking point after the game, and Matt and I discussed in the post-game podcast that night too, that you're not getting enough from production from the right flank, which has been a trend for the last few games, really after the World Cup, because before the World Cup, Fede Valverde was on fire, right? And so we need to have, I guess, some patience with Fede to work him back into form after the World Cup. And then also just the fact that we're praying that what he did on the right wing was not an anomaly, because we don't have years of sample size of Fede Valverde as a right winger. We have a small sample size in his career. It's a few games to start the season. So we're just praying that was a stretch that he can continue for a long period. I believe that he can. We'll see. And then just the fact that, you mentioned Militao at right back. He's fine in that position. Like, a lot of people think that that's a solution. I'm not saying that you can't play him there, but you can't play him there as the right back every game as the quote unquote solution. You want to rejuggle, do some 3-5-2 action with him and Rudiger and even Mendy at left center back. That's a viable option, but I don't see Ancelotti just flipping the tactics all of a sudden to do that. And at right back, he's fine, but and I don't blame him for this, but he got into attacking positions about 3 times or so by my notes, and as a clear attacking right back in rare moments. He had that one where Benzema plays an incredible one-touch through ball to him on the right side. He's right point blank in front of Pepe Reina, and great goal scoring position or a cutback position, and he just kind of fluffs it. And I don't expect him, to be honest, it's not his game. Not going to get mad at him for that, for not converting that chance or having an assist in that situation, because that's not really his game. So in those moments, you need someone who's more calculated and more used to getting into the attack. I wanted to ask you this. When was the last time you can remember Real Madrid's fullback situation being so dire offensively? In other words, when was the last time we had 2 fullbacks who can't attack?
I have to think a lot, because back in the day when Arbeloa was playing and Coentrao was starting some games, Coentrao was much more of an offensive threat than Mendy is at the moment. So maybe the days where Heinze was playing on the left and Michel Salgado was playing some on the right during his last tenure in Madrid, obviously. Old Salgado, obviously.
Young Salgado
was a beast.
Yeah.
Was a beast, yeah, absolutely. But this old Salgado, I'm talking about his last 2-3 seasons in the club, playing in the same team as Heinze. Maybe this is the closest I can remember, I think. Because again, Arbeloa was obviously a Mendy type of wing back, in the sense that he was very solid defensively, but not much of a threat offensively. But he was, even when Marcelo wasn't playing and Coentrao was much better offensively than Mendy, I think.
I love Coentrao so much. I really, really have a man crush on him. I love when he comes up on the podcast. I also just the thing with Coentrao was always that some people have this misconception of him that he was the defensive left back and Marcelo was the offensive left back. The only reason why that he has that label is because there were many, many games under Mourinho where he was instructed to stay back. But with the Portuguese national team, or when he was allowed to express himself offensively with Real Madrid, he was really, really good going forward. I really like Coentrao.
Yeah, it was a shame that he only lasted for 2-3 seasons in Madrid, I thought, because even his season when in 2013-14, when Ancelotti was making his debut as Real Madrid's coach, he was pretty much the starter for Real Madrid all season long. Marcelo came off the bench in Lisbon. Coentrao started in the crucial semifinals against Bayern. So Coentrao was great. I think he's an underrated player in that particular stretch of years. Although I have to admit that it was a very short tenure for him in Madrid. I think that he only lasted for like 2-3 seasons. Yeah.
Well, physically, he was not. He was never going to be able to sustain that because he was always injured. His body broke down, and I don't know if he took care of himself that well. I think it's fair to say that he was comfortable with smoking a lot and drinking a lot, and he also got injured.
But but Kiyan, it's a shame that he kind of went down as this meme player, like Faubert and all Gravesen and all these guys, just because of this smoking thing and these pictures of him in hospital and quotes of him saying that he ate fast food and all that. I think it's underappreciating the kind of player he was for this short period of time. But I thought he was phenomenal in those years.
He shouldn't be. There's no universe where he should be at any table with any of those players you mentioned, like Gravesen and Faubert. He's one of the best left backs in club history at his peak. If we're talking about just only peak, he's one of the best. But also, when you mentioned memes, you didn't mention one of my favorite moments, which was that day when he came on the bench when he's not even in the squad, and Casillas is laughing. He's like, "You're not supposed to be here." Great. All right, we kind of deviated a little bit, but my point was this is not normal for Real Madrid to have zero production offensively from their fullbacks. And I think a lot of people, so Mendy, I think some of the criticism on Mendy is a little bit harsh. Myself included, like I definitely did not hold back on a lot of Mendy. Like, although I thought he was actually our best defender up until the point he made that mistake at Ceramica. I know it's a low standard, but whatever. He was actually playing well. But people are not going to remember some challenges that he made and stuff. They're going to remember that his pass and then his own goal that bounced off and went in the net. But more importantly, the fact that he doesn't contribute anything offensively. And I think a lot of people will say, the ones who really, really want to defend him, they'll say, you can't only be talking about the offensive side of things. Defense is important. And my response to that would be, if you had an attacking right back on the other side, fine. You can't have both flanks not attacking. It just doesn't work. This is Real Madrid's history has always had some of the best attacking wingbacks of all time. And if not all time, in the world at that moment. It's really important for the way Real Madrid play, and I would say any modern football team, the way they want to play. You need production from your fullbacks. If you want to have one that's more defensive minded than the other, I think it's more feasible. If you had Pete Carvajal on the other side, it works to have Mendy more defensive. It doesn't necessarily work when you have an older Carvajal who can't do the same things offensively anymore. And that's where I think the point of emphasis needs to be made.
Yeah, I agree. And this is something we discussed a little bit when Real Madrid decided not to buy back Achraf. I thought that Achraf would have been a perfect fit with Mendy on the other flank. Like, nobody would worry about Mendy's lack of offensive production if Real Madrid had a player like Achraf on the other flank. But again, this is obviously a ship that has sailed already. And about Mendy, to me, it's not so much that he doesn't do anything offensively. It's the fact that he actually hurts Vinicius' game.
He does.
If Vinicius were to be a right winger and were to be on the same field as Militao, for example, who is a clearly defensive-minded, oriented wingback when deployed there, I think that not even with that kind of partner, Vinicius would have such a terrible chemistry and I would be fine with Mendy staying back. The problem with Mendy is that he tries to do something offensively and actually brings 2 or 3 help defenders towards Vinicius. Like, he's hurting Vinicius' game so much that, I can only accept well, not accept is a very harsh word. I can only see a player like him starting for Real Madrid and hurting Vinicius' game so much if he's basically a error-proof player on the defensive side of things, and Mendy hasn't been that kind of player all this season. This is my main issue with Mendy, is that the fact that he's not as defensively great and solid as he was, but he's still hurting Vinicius' game so much, even though he's been playing with him for the last 2 or 3 seasons. You definitely hoped that these two guys should have and would have created some kind of chemistry by playing together for the last 2 or 3 seasons, but they haven't. So we'll just have to wait and see what Real Madrid decides to do with Mendy, because right now it doesn't look pretty, definitely.
Okay, so you bring up some good points. I also want to point out that it's not just a Mendy problem. And I think, as you put it, if you have Mendy, or I'm not even going to mention Mendy. If you had a fullback who's making those overloads and underloads constantly in the final third, it's a presence that drags defenders away for Vinicius. You can rewatch that Villarreal game. You can rewatch the Valladolid game, or any game basically in the past year. Vinicius's job is to somehow find space when there's 3-4 defenders focusing on him. It's not easy. That, and also maybe coupled with the fact that Alaba's not doing that thing as much. He's doing it a little bit, but as much as he did last season, where he would switch with Mendy and go in the final third. Yeah. And also Benzema's form. It's a combination of a few different things. Although I would argue Benzema's link-up play has been good, it's more that his finishing is not on point as it was last season. It's a combination of all those things that are making Vinicius struggle a little bit in certain situations. And here's my question to you. What is the likelihood and what is stopping Real Madrid to just bring Fran Garcia back right now? We have until the 31st of January, I think, right?
I think that's the case, yeah. Unless there's a clause in the contract saying that these moves can only be made during the summer transfer window, which would make sense considering such a small club like Rayo Vallecano. It would create somewhat of a problem for them to force them to sell Fran Garcia to Real Madrid this winter. So maybe this is what is kind of, forcing Real Madrid to stay put with their current left back situation, because as you mentioned, it makes total sense to me to bring Fran Garcia right now and for those just 5 million, and just let him try to build some chemistry with Vinicius against some of this weaker opposition that Real Madrid will be facing in the next couple of weeks. But again, it will create somewhat of a problem for Rayo to find a replacement for him in the market right now, especially considering that they're a very small club. So this is maybe why Real Madrid aren't going for it.
Well, my heart bleeds for Rayo Vallecano in that situation. I will lose so much sleep. Oh my God, poor Rayo. Look, I think I just see it as a zero risk situation to bring him in. And I'm not even asking for Fran Garcia to start every game. I'm asking for options. I'm asking that, I'm not even advocating for Mendy to be benched. If I'm facing Liverpool in February, if I had Fran Garcia in the squad, I'd probably still start Mendy. I'm not even asking for this. I'm not asking for Mendy to be demoted. I'm asking for options, and I'm asking for us to see different looks and have different options against so many different La Liga teams, where you just a week in, week out grind. We do need offensive production in those games. If you want to do the Marcelo Coentrao thing and have Coentrao or Mendy start those bigger games for defensive purposes, do it. I'm by no means against that. I think Mendy is still one of the best despite some of these defensive mistakes he's made this season. But I think the club needs options. It's thin. It's thin right now at the fullback position. And basically we have a bunch of center backs who will play wing back if needed. Alaba, Nacho, Rudiger, Militao. These are not fullbacks. They're not fullbacks,
Yeah.
Vasquez is not a fullback. He's been converted to one. But how is this our option? We need options.
Morales pretty much destroyed him the other day in just 10 minutes of play. Vasquez. As you mentioned, Carvajal and Mendy are the only two pure fullbacks on the squad. And not even when those two are available, you have an ideal squad in terms of offensive production against low blocks and all that. So, these options of Nacho, I'm fine with Alaba. I think Alaba would be better with an extended run in that kind of position, but this is not something Ancelotti is considering, so I don't know why we should be talking about it. I mean, he's started Rudiger in that position ahead of Alaba in some occasions this season, so, and definitely Rudiger is not an option for that spot either. So it's just something that, is hurting Real Madrid so much against low blocks this season. So I would also like to have some more options for right now for this second half of the season. But in case Real Madrid decide to stay put, which seems likely at the moment, I think this is a must for next transfer window. This is something Real Madrid just must address in next summer's transfer window. Both flanks, to be honest, both the right and the left flank. Although I don't know how that will go because it's clear that there are not many options available in the market either.
Every single backup wing back we have in the squad is pure football terrorism. Like it's like think about all the names that have been suggested by our fans over the past few months. Remember, like when first of all, when Lucas Vasquez was promoted, that was not his best position. Fede Valverde, right back, terrorism. Antonio Rudiger started that Clásico in Las Vegas at left back, terrorism. Camavinga playing left back for France, terrorism. All of this is just football terrorism. These are not wing backs. None of these guys are wing backs.
Just play Odriozola and be done with it.
I think Odriozola.
I don't know why.
No, he's not good, Lucas.
Look,
he's not good. He's not good enough.
Is he not better than Lucas Vasquez for that spot?
I don't think he is, in my opinion.
In some contexts, still maybe. In some contexts against these low blocks. I'm not talking about covering Jeremy Pino. I'm not talking about covering Morales. I'm talking about, potentially the other day against Valladolid. If Carvajal hadn't been available, maybe Odriozola would have been more useful than Vázquez in that kind of context. But obviously, people is so discouraged about Odriozola. But I don't know. It's not that Real Madrid's plan A is working very well at the moment. So I might as well try what Odriozola can do again in this specific context. I don't know.
I have a couple things on Odriozola. One is that I will say this about him. It's really fast and can get to diagonal switches of like if Cruz is hitting those diagonal balls to the right side, he can make those runs into the final third at the very least and be a presence there for sure. And he was good with Fiorentina offensively last season. 100%. Defense is terrible. I am very surprised that we decided that everyone thought it was a good idea for him to come back from Fiorentina. Because if we're not planning on using him, why? Like he had a good situation there. They had a tactical setup that suited him because they played three at the back. He didn't have to defend as much. And he was happy. It was good for his career. They seemed to like him there. Why did we bring him back? That probably was a bad idea.
He probably felt he kind of earned his chance to play a little bit more than he did before, which to be honest, he probably did. Like again, I think he can produce more offensively against a low block than Rudiger or Nacho, who are thrown at that position, and I think those two would play ahead of Odriozola in this specific context we're talking about against low blocks and smaller teams. I think Ancelotti, if required, because both Carvajal and Nacho aren't available, or Carvajal and Vázquez, aren't available or fresh, I think both Nacho and Rudiger would be ahead than Odriozola in this context, and I don't think that's good for the team. I think Odriozola can contribute more in this specific context than these two guys. So I think he's been a little bit underused so far this season, given the struggles Real Madrid have faced from both flanks. Because as you mentioned, you can if you have Mendy on the other flank, you can play Odriozola on the right against pretty much every team in La Liga. I'm not talking about the big powerhouses in the Champions League or big away games in the Champions League or in La Liga against Atletico away, against Valencia away. I'm not talking about those cases. I'm talking about smaller teams, low blocks, specific context. If you're playing with your two center backs and Mendy on the left, you can manage playing Odriozola on the right for sure. And I think this is an option that Real Madrid have underused a little bit for my taste. I'm not a fan of Odriozola, not by any means, but again, I think he can produce more offensively than some players who are ahead of him in the rotation right now.
Yeah, I think underused might be fair. I think, but if Carvajal and Vasquez are your 1 and 2, then there's only going to be so much playing time left over for Odriozola. And also, the thing with him is that, and again, it's coming from someone who watched a lot of Fiorentina last season, he's not like we think of him like, okay, he can attack, but he can't defend. When I say he can attack, just to be very clear, he can't. It's not like a Marcelo offense. It's not even close. Obvious. It's not like an Ashraf Hakimi offense. It's not a TAA offense. It's average. It's okay. It's passable. Like he's fine. He's not going to be a difference maker. His Real Sociedad days are long gone, where he was really, really good offensively. It's just not the same player anymore. And so, I guess it's just I think it's valid, I suppose, in some level to say he's underused. I can see that, but he's not going to change anything.
Yeah.
So I guess that's my proposal is bring Fran Garcia back now.
I don't think Real Madrid will do it just because of the relationship thing with Rayo. It's not even in the reports in the Spanish press or anything like that. So I think that there's two options here. One, this clause can only be activated during the summer, which might be logic and reasonable in my opinion. And option number 2 is that even if Real Madrid could actually bring him back right now, Real Madrid don't want to mess the relationship with Rayo Vallecano just in case they are willing to take on other young players in the near future.
Any other notes you wanted to talk about from the game itself, or did you want to move on to a couple of other things?
From the game itself, I think was pretty poor from Real Madrid, and it's not time to push the panic button just yet, but I think there are valid concerns about how Real Madrid has returned from the World Cup break. I think we need to keep an eye on how Real Madrid play over the next 2, 3, 4 games, because the last 3 games post World Cup break have been encouraging, even though obviously Real Madrid managed to beat Valladolid and Cacereño, not in a very convincing or encouraging fashion, in my opinion. So I would like for Real Madrid to pick it up a little bit, but it won't be easy without Tchouameni and Alaba. Just hoping that this allows Camavinga to play a little bit more minutes than what he's playing at the moment. I think he can provide a breath of fresh air that is much needed at the moment for Madrid.
Tchouameni and Alaba injured, not in the squad for the Supercopa game. Alaba's out for what, like 20 days or so, I think?
Yeah, it should be 3-4 weeks, yeah.
Do we have a timeline for Tchouameni?
Not really, but I'm guessing it will be pretty much the same. It will be the standard muscle injury for Real Madrid here. They're obviously out of the next 2/3 games, depending on whether Real Madrid managed to advance against Valencia or not. Like, they will certainly miss next week's match against Villarreal in the Copa del Rey as well. Maybe Tchouameni has a chance of being available for San Mamés, but I don't think that's the place you want to throw him recently recovered from injury, so I'm just guessing that he won't be back until after that match in Bilbao. I'm guessing that Real Madrid will have to play their next 3/4 games, depending on what happens in the Spanish Super Cup semifinal, without both Alaba and Tchouameni.
I thought we could just there's a couple it's big news, but with regard to how we'll just break it down in the podcast, I think we can touch on each subject briefly. Starting with Gareth Bale announcing his retirement. I don't know how much to say right now or what to say, partly because I feel like we've only done the Bale tribute thing before. We've talked about everything we need to talk about when he left Real Madrid. And so in some ways, that to me was the retirement. Now it's official. He's announced it. But I feel like I've already said what there needs to be said. We did an entire tribute podcast on him already. But did you have anything you wanted to talk about?
Not really. I think it was the right time for him to retire. I think he's been retired, quote unquote, retired for the last 2 or 3 seasons. So it's the right move for him to be done with football after the World Cup, which was his biggest target for the last few years or so. So I think it's the right move for him. He's only 33, I think. So some might consider it a little bit early, but taking a look at how his career has gone for the last seasons, I think it's the right time for him to move on and do something else.
Just if there's anything I need to add, I guess I'll just reiterate very quickly what I already said. And I put Matt and I did an entire tribute episode on Bale in the summertime, June 7th, 2022. You can go listen to that. I've also put it on my Twitter. He is one of the greats. Like, it's indisputable, whether you want to look at the numbers, the trophies, the clutch performances. Truly, truly incredible athlete and footballer. And it was a joy to watch him play. I just want to add one more thing. The more I reflect on, the more the time passes, to me, his legacy only improves. Someone asked me on Instagram last night, who was better at their peak, specifically Bale or Figo. And I love Figo as much as anyone. At his peak was unplayable. The numbers, even at their peaks, aren't even close. Like Bale's best season and Figo's best season ever, Bale's goal and assist tally is like double of Figo's. The numbers aren't close. That's how good he was. And so
different roles though, Kiyan.
I'm just talking about like as a right winger who was expected to produce offense, Bale was better.
Yeah, but Bale was inverted, more opportunities to shoot, to attack. Overall, Figo was a pure winger. I don't think.
But I'm talking, even the assist numbers are in Bale's favor. Even the creative element to it,
I'm not a fan of comparing different eras, different teammates, different. I'm not sure it's that clear of a debate, of an argument between peak Bale and peak Figo, just because, again, it's easy to pick up a seat when you're playing with Cristiano Ronaldo and Benzema, and it's definitely easier to score goals when you're an inverted winger rather than a pure winger like Figo was. On the other hand, Figo also was taking penalties, so I just think it's closer than people probably realize, and I'm not a fan of looking at numbers to try to decide these discussions, because different eras, different teammates, different style of play, different football overall. So it's just something that I'm not totally comfortable with it. But in this particular debate, I think that peak Figo was really, really close to peak Bale at the very least. And I'm not even sure if peak Figo is the version Real Madrid got to see from him. I think peak Figo maybe was his last season or even the second to last season in Barcelona, and I'm not sure which player was better, but Bale definitely one of the greats.
Yeah, I mean, peak Figo was really his last 2 years at Barcelona and his first year at Real Madrid. Those 3 years specifically, he was unplayable. But I mean, I even factored in his best Barcelona year when looking at those numbers, and it's fine. I'm not going to say like it's a landslide Bale victory, but just to put things into perspective, I mean, the numbers are there. So if you want to say you prefer Figo or Bale was slightly better, that's fine. But I just want to put that in perspective. That's how good Bale was.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
His last few years in Madrid shouldn't damage his legacy that much. No. Like I realized that obviously some part of it is rightfully damaged or tarnished or whatever you want to call it because of these last 2-3 seasons, because of all the controversy and all that, his legacy as a player and his legacy in Real Madrid, but not as much as not admitting that he was one of the greats. Yeah.
The whole Zidane thing, Benzema thing, French football president. I don't have much to say on this other than the French football president is, excuse my language, is an idiot and old and senile, old-fashioned, dumb. And when he says, quote, I wouldn't pick up the phone when if Zidane called, is really not the flex you think it is, because you would be, I'm not even sure if you'd be even worthy of a 5-second phone call with that man who was one of the greatest figures in football history, who, by the way, is not just great on the pitch, is a complete class act, never talks shit about anyone, barely talks. When he talks, everybody listens. This has been well documented by every single one of his former teammates. And on top of that, like this whole apology that he put out is nonsense. It's a backtrack. It's a terrible apology, and it's a backtrack because he faced backlash on it. That's it. That's all I got to say. Whatever you want to add to this.
As soon as you have your biggest star right now, who is Mbappe, apart from Benzema, who is obviously the reigning Ballon d'Or winner, as soon as you have your biggest star putting up a tweet, criticizing and asking for respect for a legend like Zidane, you know that your initial comment backfired. He was also the main protagonist on L'Equipe's cover today, so he obviously got what he deserved when he made that comment, because obviously French people don't want to read any kind of criticism on Zidane, especially if it's done that way, you know, if it's totally uncalled for and unnecessary, because Zidane didn't make a single quote about it, and it was so uncalled for that he got what he wanted when he made that comment. Definitely.
Yeah. It's the only good thing that came out of this to me is just that the outpouring of support, obviously, that Zidane and Benzema got from everyone.
I'm glad that Real Madrid not only decided to support Zidane, which is also something great to see, because this is not something Real Madrid were very accustomed to doing when Zidane was the coach. But I'm also glad that they defended Benzema, because I didn't like his quote about Benzema either, although he said that he admires his career, that Benzema is a great player. He was very unlucky because he got injured and all that. The part where he says that, you know, on the other hand, we got to see a team with Giroud, and maybe we wouldn't have scored this many goals had Benzema been on the field, is, again, so uncalled for and unnecessary, that I'm glad that Real Madrid also decided to support Benzema on their statement.
People like him are just not intelligent enough to know that just don't talk. Some people, the more the microphone is handed to them, the worse they make everything. He is one of those guys that just needs to not talk ever. It would make everything better for him. Do we need to talk about anything else?
No, I think as you mentioned, he needs to be quiet a little bit more when asked about the last two Ballon d'Or winners for France, who are also incredibly beloved figures in France as a country. You know, we're not even talking about Platini, who is obviously a Ballon d'Or winner for France, but he's not as beloved as both Zidane and Benzema are. So it's just really, really not intelligent to criticize these two guys in such an uncalled for fashion as he did. So yeah, lesson learned, I guess. Next time he's asked about both Benzema and Zidane, he won't be messing with them.
Well, yeah, it's insane on so many levels. Lucas, let's wrap it up here. You and I will be back on Thursday, which of course is the day after Real Madrid play against Valencia in the Supercopa, and also happens to be Mailbag Day. So if you want to submit your questions to Lucas and I, you can do that through our Discord channel or through Patreon. And if you want to access the episode itself after the questions submitted, of course, patreon.com/Managing Madrid. It goes up only there once per week, in addition to the other bonus content we do there. Lucas, thanks for your time, my friend. Hope you have a fantastic Monday. We'll chat on Thursday. Thank you.
Yes, sir. You too. Bye.
Thanks for listening. And before we wrap it up here, we wanted to give a quick shout out to our patrons over on patreon.com/Managing Madrid, and specifically to our $10 plus patrons, because if you pledge $10 or more per month, you not only get access to everything and not only get guaranteed responses to your questions, you also get a specific shout out at the podcast. So shout out to our $10 plus patrons as follows: Brandon Alvarez, Willie Reed, Will Sousa, Wade Herring, Tobias Arroyo Botcher, Talib Salhab, Tahmid Kalam, Sushank Damala, Sujai Wani, Sumanchu Singh, Sheikh Hatiri, Shamil, Sergio Arispe, Santos Solorzano, Samuel Justin, Samar Z, Said Mahad, Sai Mohan, Sasi Kumar, Rodrigo Balmaceda, Rishi D, Phoenix, Peter Powell, Paulo Fierro, Patrick Odayafadi, Oscar Barrera, Nico Laxo, Nicholas Moeller, Nick Ribeiro, Mowgli, MJ Diego, Michael Zinberg, Marin Myrtle, Matthew Atkins, Martin Ridman, Magnus Lext, Logan Stahl, Leon Stavronakis, Kunal Tilakar, Crystal Glass, Kevin Rivera, Jose Cruz, John Fernandez, Jason Fitz, Ian Marley, Graham Gerard, Gary Kohut, Frederick Rantakiro, Frederick Sunros, Faisal Hamdan, S.A. Davisito, Eloy Enriquez, Edward Sossman, Daniel Williams, Khan P, Christian Toth, Christian Acosta, Charles Williams, Brendan Powers, Brandon Stevens, Ashik Bashar, Arnab Mukherjee, Arman Gashi, Armando L, Anirudh Singh, Ananya Kumar, Azaz Hussein, Adrian Rios, Adar Zalukovic, Adam Dorsey, Varun, Fabian Moreno, and Daniel Smith. We love you guys so much. Thank you so much for your support. Thanks for being a part of this family. And Hala Madrid.